Live with CDP, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast live on YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, and on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and Anchor FM. Now here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good morning. Welcome to Live with CDP Podcast, Season 3, Episode 53 on this Friday, June 17th, 2022. I'm just looking forward to my guest today, Griffin Della Penna. He's a content digital writer for the Sabres and Bandits websites, and we're just waiting for him to come on this morning. He's just got a technical issue, so hopefully we'll have that resolved. And Griffin will be on in the next minute or two. So I'm looking forward to speaking to Griffin about the Buffalo Bandits. As you guys know, are playing Game 3 of the NLL Finals tomorrow night. Saturday night at 8 o'clock at the KeyBank Center in downtown Buffalo. And I wish I could be at that game. Like I said, it should be a hell of a game, and I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to overtime. So just bear with me, guys, and I'm going to bring on my guest, Griffin, and we're going to talk some Bandits and some Buffalo Sabres as well. And it's a big weekend going on in Buffalo. So 1 second. Hey, Griffin, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Chris, how are you? Good to see you.
Good. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we talked about this a few weeks back when you were in Buffalo at the Bandits game, so I'm glad that it's finally happening.
Ironically, that was the last time the Bandits had lost a game, was April 30th to the Toronto Rock, 10-7.
Yeah, well, then, I mean, you have to count last weekend too, but after, a really good regular season, that definitely was a little blemish there, but we had a good little streak going, and we'll see what we can do Game 3 on Saturday.
Okay. I know you can't really comment a lot on this, but I just wanted to say thoughts and prayers to Kim Pegula, and hopefully she gets better and feels better soon.
Yeah, that was definitely something that we found out about just the night before the news broke, and, very scary stuff. But yeah, she's definitely in all of our thoughts and prayers right now, that's for sure.
And I was going to say, and it just shows you how important health is. Health is the number one thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing else really matters in the big picture other than being healthy.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
So I was going to say, so I just wanted to mention that. But I was going to say, you must be excited about tomorrow night. A sellout crowd, 19,000 plus fans. It's probably been, 3 or 4 years since the Bandits have had a sellout at the KeyBank Center?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think, like, when I was younger, so I grew up in Buffalo, and going to games when I was younger, that was what Banditland was. And I think because of the pandemic, maybe some fans are afraid to go out, or maybe they don't have the funds to go to games. There's a lot of different factors that go into that. But even though we've had great crowds so far this season, it has not been a sellout crowd. And what better time to have your first sellout crowd than Game 3 of the NLL Finals? So personally, I'm really excited to see it, just to bring that atmosphere back, because even throughout, the Sabres season, we had very few sellouts as well. So it's going to be really cool to have a packed barn and such a huge game. And I know the players, after talking to some of them this week, they're really excited about it.
Yeah, I really wish I could have gone to the game, but the good news is I'm going to watch on TSN, and also I'm going to be in Buffalo next weekend for a couple of Bison's games, thanks to my friend Pat Malacaro. He's setting me up with a media press box pass. So nice. I'm going to bring my laptop and write a blog, and then hopefully I'll be able to talk to him and Duke and maybe some other people and do some more short interviews. I'm doing these short live interviews now. I'm posting them on my YouTube channel.
Nice. Yeah, Pat's a great guy. I've gotten to do a little bit of commentary with him at Canisius, where I go to school. He does some baseball and softball broadcasts before the Bison season starts. And a little funny story about Pat. So when he got his career really taken off, he was the broadcaster for the Batavia Muckdogs. That was also the team that I got my first break for, was the Batavia Muckdogs this past year. So it's like a little lineage of guys that have worked for the Muckdogs and they've worked their way up. So it's a pretty cool connection.
Cool, and I'm bringing them some treats for him and Duke. I guess they love Coffee Crisp chocolate bars. Apparently, you guys still can't get Coffee Crisp in Buffalo, even though Nestle makes them.
Yeah, I was last time I was in Hamilton, yeah, for the playoffs. I had those for the first time and they're really good. That was the first time in my entire life I've had them, but yeah, I was a big fan.
Okay, well, maybe hey, maybe I'll run into you next weekend at the. I'm going to be at the ballpark Friday and
Yeah,
Saturday, so maybe I'll run into you because I'm going to be bringing a whole bunch over for Pat and Duke, and maybe I'll get you a couple if you're going to happen to be at one of those games.
yeah, maybe we'll see.
Definitely. So, hey, I was going to ask you before we get into some questions, media for this game. How many people are you expecting from the Buffalo, Colorado, and the Canada area for this into the media press box at the Key Bank, the Ted Darling press box?
I'm definitely hoping that it's more than what we've seen. From your personal experience, you saw that unfortunately the NLL doesn't really get as much media attention as some of the other professional leagues that we have here in North America. And I think that's starting to change too, right? Like throughout the season, you're starting to see more buzz. And I think that has a lot to do with the ESPN and TSN deal that the league now has. But I think in general, people in Buffalo are now more excited or more interested about it because they're in the finals. And maybe this is the first time that they're really hearing about it all season long. So there definitely will be a larger media presence at this game. And there was for game 1, too. But again, you'd like to see that ramped for the entire season, not just me and, Bud Bailey in the press box in a game in mid-February. You want to see that sort of community involvement from the local news stations and maybe more beat writers that are talking about the team throughout the season instead of just at the end of the season. But back to your question, there will definitely be some more people, which is awesome for the team and also great for the league.
How many people can you accommodate in that box? Is there just that one area where I was with Bud, or is there another area too?
No, so if you keep going down, so if you continue to go down that hallway, in each one of those rooms, I know you were talking to John Gertler as well. All those are different separate rooms for broadcasts, whether that's TV or radio, and then you'll start to see that there's another opening and a large, almost I would say it's another two-story press area where they can accommodate more people, but they mostly put scouts there. So, there's the off-ice scouts from each one of the professional teams that has a designated spot in those areas. But again, those scouts aren't there every single game. So they can tuck some other people over there as well.
Okay, so who's responsible for taking care of the media coming? Is it Aaliyah Clements?
Yeah, so she's definitely one of those people. The PR team, now that the Sabres season is done, Chris Durkin and Nicole Hendricks, they're in charge of the Sabres side of things. So they definitely have had a little bit more involvement now that, their schedule's freed up. So throughout the playoff run, they've kind of taken the reins from Aaliyah a little bit, but she still definitely has a large part as well.
Okay, and the game will be on WGR 550, or will it be on the bet?
Nope, it'll be on WGR,
Jar.
which is good for our radio crowd here in Buffalo. We have some avid radio listeners on 550, so it's definitely going to be good for them.
Looking forward to it. And originally, it was what, a 7:30 face off, but I guess they moved it back to 8 because of TSN and ESPN, I guess.
Yep. So the TV deals just bumped it back 30 minutes. We saw that last week in game 2 in Colorado. They moved that game time back. Maybe just some scheduling conflicts, nothing too crazy, but yeah, just 30 minutes back. So it'll be 8 p.m. face off instead of 7:30.
Okay. Now, obviously, TSN's going to have their own crew. I'm not sure if John Abbott's going to be doing the game because I know he's covering the Memorial Cup, the OHL playoffs right now. So I assume Pat Gregor, Ashley Docking will be there. I'm just not sure if it's the other guy, Teddy, I think's his name. He
Yeah.
filled in for John last week. Now, ESPN Plus, is it going to be the John from the Bandits doing the simulcast for ESPN Plus?
No, so what they actually did last week for the ESPN crew when I watched the game, just to get some updates and what have you, was actually the TSN broadcast, and they just put the TSN broadcast on ESPN Plus.
Okay.
So I'm expecting the same thing to happen this week too.
Okay. because then John can focus on radio. And I'm sure
Yep.
he probably prefers doing radio. I can't speak for him, but I'm sure he prefers doing radio better. So that's, and you know what? And they do that with the CFL too. The CFL is now on ESPN and ESPN Plus
Yep.
in the States, and they just basically use the TSN crew as well instead of having two separate crews for this.
Yeah, I think it makes it easier in general. Just logistically makes a little bit more sense to, just even though the graphic still says TSN, I mean, the people in the States aren't going to be mad that it doesn't say ESPN instead. So maybe, makes a little bit more sense and saves them some money too.
Okay. Before we get to questions, I want to ask you one other question. What's the status on LA McLaughlin? I guess he's got 20 goals, 21 assists, 41 points for Colorado. He obviously missed the game last week. Is there any possibility he could play tomorrow night?
So from what I've heard, 5 hours before game 2, he was put on IR. So like many other sports, the IR, it's just not a 1 week thing. That mostly means, 2 to 3 weeks. So I've heard that that's still going to be the case. When I talked to John Tavares, the Bandits head coach this week, they're expecting him to not be in the lineup. But regardless, they still have to focus on Connor Robinson and Zed Williams and the secondary scoring that really willed them to the game 2 victory. So they still have a daunting task, but it definitely hurts Colorado because you have to think of it like this. He did not play last week, and he still leads in goals, assists, and points in the playoffs. And he didn't even play last week. And I think Dane and Josh are tied for second in points, and they're still, a ways away from McLaughlin. So, it's kind of crazy.
I was going to say that game, Colorado got off to a 2-0 start, and then Buffalo went up 6-3. I think one of the turning points in that game, I don't know if you agree with me, Griffin, was that goal at the halftime. Like there was less than 2 seconds or 1 second, and it made it 6-4, and it just seemed to change the game for Colorado in that second half because they outscored Buffalo 7-2 in the second half.
Yeah, it gave them a little bit more momentum heading into the second half, I would say. They called the timeout with like 20 seconds remaining, got the goal with 1.5 seconds left. And to make it a 2-goal game instead after a really dominant second quarter for Buffalo gave them a little bit more juice. But I think the real key for Colorado was their first 7 goals were scored by Connor Robinson and Zed Williams. That's all that they had. Their offense was those 2 guys, which isn't a bad thing. But you have to start to expect some secondary scoring at some point, and that's when Tyson Gibson got involved. That's when you see some other guys start to, get some good possessions, get some good looks, and when those shots start to fall, it's tough for Buffalo because you're keying so much on those top 2 guys. If they have some other people that start to, play their best lacrosse, they're going to be tough to beat.
Well, and the good news for the Bandits is they don't have to go to Colorado anymore because they're 0-2 there. So Colorado seems to match up well with the Bandits. The one thing I noticed about the Bandits team is they seem to start out strong, but then the second half, they like the game against the Rock I went to, the Rock outscored them 7-2. It just seems like the third quarter, the fourth quarter, I don't know what it is. They're not the same team there.
And it's a complete switch from what they were in the beginning of the season. I would say that game specifically that you're talking about to end the regular season, that was almost the switch in dynamic between their offense. Because before that, their offense, full 60 minutes, they were grooving. And after that game, I think the Rock started to maybe dissect some things that they could get their offense off their regular flow a little bit more. And that kind of stunned them a little bit. That game, Dane Smith didn't register a point. That's only the 3rd time in his illustrious career that's ever even happened. And that was just a prime example of them, not really getting into that groove. And you saw it this past week, too. In the first quarter, they're down 2-0, and their offense really looked confused. If you want to compare that to the week before, scoring 15 goals, and then you're going to get a goose egg in the first 15 minutes, that's not ideal by any means. So, I would say, even though their offense has played really well in the playoffs and they have a lot of wins to show for it, it's still not the same that we saw in the regular season. But you also have to expect in the playoffs, it's not going to be, your top guys. You're playing the best competition. You're playing a lot of the times the best goalies, the best defense. And that really has changed, the offense, I believe. And that's why they've had to rely on Matt Vince a lot more. And their defense that is, primarily the backbone of this team a lot of the times in their wins or their losses. So it's definitely been a change because you just expect, to show up to the arena and for Buffalo to score 13 plus goals, but that might not be the case during the playoffs. And even for them, I think that's been an adjustment.
Yeah. I was going to say, the other day you were doing some work for the Buffalo Bills, and
Yeah.
what, a 13-hour day?
Oh man, it was crazy. So how my internship works, it's actually through Pegula Sports and Entertainment. So they are the overarching company over the Bandits, the Sabres, and the Bills. Primarily what I do in the media and content department is heavily on the Bandits and the Sabres, but for bigger events, I help out the Bills. And on Monday before, OTAs and minicamp was their media day. So for their media day, every single player has to get their headshots. They have to do all these pictures. They have to do all the hype video pieces. Now that the Bills are one of the most liked and nationally ranked teams to potentially get their first Super Bowl, they have crews like NBC and ESPN. They have to do all these pieces for, their nationally televised games. So it's a long day in general, and there's a lot of setup for it. But it's really rewarding to get to see these guys up close and personal, and to talk to a Josh Allen and to a Von Miller, and to just see this team, because there is something special with them. Like, you see them walk around and there's a different feeling than in previous years. So even though it was a long day, and unfortunately I had to miss your show on Monday, even though we're doing it right now too, but it was pretty cool.
No worries. And you know what? Hey, if I want to get into radio, sometimes things happen. So you know what? It's been a while, probably about 2 years since I've done a solo show. So it was good
Hmm.
experience for me, and no worries about it. I knew something was going on. So
Yeah.
one thing I wanted to ask you about, I saw something on your social media page. You're a TikTok star now?
Yeah, so some of the guys that I work closest with, they run the TikTok accounts for the Bills and the Sabres, and no, they're out there, but they are some of the most creative people that I've ever met in my entire life. Their name's Kevin and James, and they make great content. And across the league, I think NFL fans know that the Bills' social media in general is really good. It's really funny and authentic. So for media day, what they decided to do is to pretend to be like carnies and run like a carnival. And they brought out the Bills team car. It's this huge like tank Toyota Highlander. And they said if you bowl a strike, you get the car. What the guys didn't know is that the top three pins were drilled down into the ground. So these guys were going up. They're like, "Oh, I can do this easy." Looked like it would have been a perfect strike, and the pins aren't going down, and they're all confused. So I helped them set that up in the shoot, and I was a little extra in the background, but it was pretty funny.
Yeah. Hey, I was at a Ontario Hockey League game in Hamilton Sunday against Windsor, Game 5, and I shot some. Obviously, I took some pictures and shot some videos. I posted one video on TikTok, my TikTok page, Live
Hmm.
with CDP, and it was just the opening where they shut the lights off. They had this music on. They had all the people put their flashlights on their cell phones. It was kind of cool, and I thought, okay, I'll post it on my TikTok page. 32,500 views later and 4,000 likes.
Wow. And that's
Yeah.
what's so weird about TikTok is in the algorithm, some people interact with it, and
Yeah.
it can just skyrocket up pretty quickly.
Well, yeah, like most of my videos are usually about, I don't know, 400, 500 views, but 32,500 views. And I've got now 850 followers. So in another 150, I should start being able to go live on TikTok, because I never would go on TikTok before. I thought it was all for younger people, but you know what? There's people my age or even older on there, and it's a
Hmm.
great tool. It's a great tool to promote myself and my podcast and what I'm
Yeah.
doing with the media. I do my 3-minute interviews like yourself and some of
Hmm.
the other guys I've done, and I post them on TikTok, and then I share them on my other social media pages.
Yeah, I think at this day and age, you have to adjust to what's popular. And that app, I mean, since really COVID happened, I remember I was taking a marketing class, what was that, in 2020. And one of our teachers, we had to do an assignment on social media. And what my group had to do was on TikTok, and none of us have ever heard of it. We're like, what is this new app?
Yep.
Whatever. And then, the world gets shut down, and TikTok
Yep.
was the rave. So we were kind of, the newbies before it was cool on TikTok. But yeah, I would say over the past 2 years, it's one of the top apps. So I think that's really good that you're doing that.
Yeah, thank you. Sometimes you post videos on there and you think they'll do well, and then they don't. And then, like I said on Sunday, I posted something, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow! It's like I never had so many people watch my videos, so it's just kind of cool. But it's another tool to use for my podcast and my media work. So
Yeah, absolutely.
definitely. Okay, we'll just get to some questions, Griffin. And by the way, I got your name right, Griffin.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite players is Blake Griffin, so that's how I got your
Yeah.
name mixed up. But you were cool about it, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, always will be.
Okay, Griffin, can you just tell my audience here in Guelph, it's just about 2 hours from Buffalo and about an hour from Toronto. Can you
Yeah.
just tell us a little bit about yourself, and when did you decide you wanted to pursue a career in journalism and broadcasting?
Yeah, so my name's Griffin Della Penna. I'm a 20-year-old going into my senior year at Canisius College in Buffalo. It's a Division I school. You know, I'll kind of tie in of how I wanted to pursue this career, but ever since, you know, this is kind of cliche, but I remember the first time me and my dad, it was like a Saturday morning. I was probably 6 or 7 years old. I run down, it's early in the morning, to our basement. My dad's already down there and he's flipping through the channels. And I was like, oh, what are we going to watch? He turns on ESPN and it was Sports Center. I was like, I've never seen it before. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I was like, Dad, what is this? It's like, oh, it's Sports Center. And from that day on, I was completely fascinated because I love sports. I was an avid sports fan. I really missed out in my childhood, the whole like superhero Marvel phase. Like I just got straight into sports at a really young age. And from that day on, I told my dad, I was like, I want to do that. I thought it was the coolest thing ever that, you know, there's people that get paid and sit behind a desk in fancy suits and just talk about sports all day. So, you know, you can go back throughout elementary school, middle school, and high school, like all of the sheets that say, oh, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? I've always said this. So, fast forward a little bit into high school, I was a pretty good baseball player. I had some, you know, Division I looks. My sophomore year had a really bad shoulder injury, which kind of took away from some of my Division I interests going into my junior year. So I had a lot more local schools looking at me. I had a great junior and senior year and was really down to some schools. I had to pick, okay, am I going to pick my baseball career or do I want to go to the school that's going to best prepare me for what I want to do for the rest of my life? And the one school that kind of had the best of both worlds was Canisius College. And funny story about that. So I got my name Griffin because my parents met at Canisius. Their
Okay.
mascot is the Golden Griffins. So I have been around that school my entire life. And long story short, you know, I didn't have a scholarship offer to play baseball at Canisius originally. I did have some interest from them previously before my shoulder injury. So I told their coach after I said I was going to go there, I was like, hey, I'd love to try out, see if I can make the team. My freshman year, I did do that. COVID happens. Everybody gets to come back because of their eligibility purposes and the NCAA granting everybody a year back. So I'm sitting here going into my sophomore year. All these older catchers were, you know, going into their fifth year on the depth chart, and I'm basically told, okay, you might, you know, be the starter your senior year. And I sat around and thought about it, and I was like, I don't think that's going to be for me. I think I'd rather start my career now and just give that 110%. Really, all I wanted to do was just prove that I could play at the Division I level and prove that to myself. So it was a really tough decision to hang him up, but I'm really happy with my decision. So over this, you know, extended period of time in the past year, I mentioned it earlier, but for the Batavia Muckdogs, they're a summer collegiate wooden bat league. So kids all across the country come to this league, and it's a scouting purpose to try to get drafted. So we'll get into that a little bit more, but I was a one-man crew in their media and content department. So I did 50 games home and road, broadcasted all of those, ran their social media, did their marketing, sold tickets. I did it all last summer, and that opened the door to me to work at Pegula Sports and Entertainment and work for the Buffalo Sabres and the Bandits and write articles for them and get great experience there. And then also at Canisius now, I'm their go-to guy for play-by-play as every single Canisius sport. We have a joint agreement with ESPN3, so all of our sports are televised on their airwaves, and I've gotten great experience doing that too.
Okay. Playing baseball, what positions did you play again? What positions?
So I was a catcher.
Catcher.
Yeah, and not good on the knees, but I played that ever since I was 7 years old. It was my favorite spot and didn't want to change from that. So yeah, freak injury, torn my labrum, broke my collarbone. It was a gruesome injury, but came back from it. And yeah.
Playing catcher, when I played baseball, obviously I wasn't good enough to play college or whatever. I played catcher too, and I love the position, but you do take your bumps and bruises and stuff like that. And uh, I had a few bumps and bruises from it, but I loved it. It was like playing goalie in hockey
Yeah.
because you're in control of the game, being behind the plate.
And that's what I loved. I loved being in it every single pitch, being like the quarterback of the team. And I was always like the vocal leader anyway. So it just kind of made sense for me to play there.
Okay, and you did answer my next question, because sometimes, hey, with listening, you ask one question, the guest gives you answers to three or four. So this
hmm
question you already answered about where you went to school. Obviously, did you have any mentors when you were breaking into the broadcasting journalism industry?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd still say, I mean, I really haven't broken completely yet as, I'm still in school, but somebody that's been there throughout the way, Tim Graham, he works for The Athletic. He's actually a professor at Canisius too. He's an adjunct professor. I took a class with him as a sophomore, sports journalism 326, I believe it was. And he's just an amazing guy, right? He's been doing this for a long time. Beat writer for the Buffalo News. A few years back, they had some financial issues, so he took a buyout. Now he's working with the Athletic. Loves it there. Great guy. Talk to him all the time. It was really cool for me to be able to be with him in the press box and sit with him with the Sabres this past year. So he's a guy I would say. Another guy that used to be in the Buffalo market was Marcel Louis Jacques. He was an ESPN writer for the Buffalo Bills. He was their beat writer for 2 different seasons. Before last season, he actually took a little bit of a promotion and went down to Miami to cover the Dolphins for ESPN. So he's a guy that last year really took me under his wing. As I love doing stuff on air and want to do broadcasting or be a studio host or, a reporter, but I love writing too. And he's someone that is a fantastic writer. And he really opened my eyes to potentially do that and maybe even blend the two. So he's someone that I've really admired. And then over this past year too, another guy, Rich Hollenberg, he is the studio host for the Tampa Bay Rays. He's a guy that I've gotten to know really well and has helped me tremendously with my on-air stuff. So I'd say that those are the top 3 right now, but I've been so fortunate with, I would say at this point, maybe over 100 people that I've gotten to know just through this industry. And I think that that's what's really cool. It's networking is so crucial in this, and just, being friendly and meeting people like you. Like, I think that's what this industry is all about. So I've been very, very fortunate to have a lot of great people in my life.
Yeah, my story is similar to yours, except I'm a little bit older. But what I was going to say, connections. I've made friendships, and one thing I've learned too, Griffin, not just in the states with the media guys, but even the Canadian guys that are on my podcast too.
Mhm.
A lot of them are actually teachers or professors at college and universities
Yeah.
here too, because they have a passion for it and they want to share their stories and experience with younger students. And I've been really lucky about that. And my road to getting in this industry is a little different than yours. So I'm trying to work to get into radio. And a lot of these guys are telling me, I've asked all of them, Griffin, if I should go back to school for this, but they're telling me it's nothing against the school. They're just telling me what I'm doing right now with this podcast, my
Mhm.
volunteer work with Rogers TV, and then I'm doing media freelance work now with the Basketball League, the Ontario Hockey League, and with the Toronto Argonauts. They're telling me that's kind of my own schooling.
Yeah, getting experience is the number one, and I think it is, I wouldn't say cliche at this point in time to go to school, but if I had to pick this past year, okay, I have this super big event that I have to cover for the Sabres at this point in time where I have class. 10 out of 10 times, I would rather go to get actual experience in the field with the Sabres instead of going to class. And I mean, my professors would probably agree, because even though learning in the classroom is so important, nothing beats actually going out there and doing it. So I think I would say the same thing as well. I think what you're doing is great.
I was gonna say, if I was 20, if they had this technology 20 years ago, 25 years ago when I was in college, absolutely no brainer. I would have taken the radio
Mhm.
broadcasting journalism program, but at least now they do have it, and it's a big help. And like I said, I've made a lot of connections on here through my podcast and through my guests and all that. And one thing I love about this podcast is hearing stories from everyone, because everyone has a different story and how they got into their positions.
Yeah, 100%. I had a podcast of my own throughout COVID, just with my schedule and how busy I got. I really haven't gone back to that, but it was a very similar layout too. I just wanted to hear not even just from people in sports broadcasting or journalism. It was more wide ranging in sports.
Yeah.
I had head athletic trainers on. I had people on ticket sale. Like I just wanted to see every single facet of sports, and that's what even throughout my internship too. It is fascinating to see how much goes into making professional sports professional sports. I mean, it is not just you show up and it's done. Like there's hours and hours and hours of stuff that you'll never see from a fan perspective that goes into making it as big as it is.
Well, even with the podcast, doing it at home, I still have to produce my shows,
Yeah.
booking guests, and sometimes things happen with guests where the Wi-Fi goes down, or I guess has another work commitment, and you just have to the show has to go on. So people don't realize the podcast is not easy. It's a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
work, but I love it. I have a passion for it. And one thing, Griffin, too, I'm taking your advice, and that's what I've been doing. 80% of my podcast is sports, but now I'm getting people from other professions coming
Hmm.
on to just branch myself out, just to show a radio station if they're watching this that I can do a little more than sports too.
Yeah, and diversifying yourself is huge throughout, my internship. And when people ask me, "Oh, so you want to do sports?" and I don't just say, I feel like there's a lot of people my age that, "Oh, I want to do play by play. I want to do play by play." When I get asked that question, I just say, I love doing everything, right? If I have an opportunity to go run graphics or to go edit a video or to, know, go out and really just anything like throughout in the media and content department, there is so much stuff, social media, marketing, graphic design. I mean, I want to learn how to do absolutely everything. So after I graduate, I can tell an employer, look, like, here's everything I can do. And I can guarantee you that there's not another person that knows how to do as much as I know how to do. And I think like that is what sets you over the edge instead of just being like the rest of the pack and trying to be the best that you can at just one thing.
Yep.
I'd rather be really, 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 really good at a ton of things instead of just classifying yourself and just trying to perfect one thing. Because at the end of the day, you can't just perfect one thing anyway. So might as well be good at everything you can do.
And that's what I'm doing with the camera work with Rogers
Hmm.
TV, being on live TV, and also I'm doing a blog now. I'm not the greatest
Yeah.
writer, but I'm blogging, and then I'm trying to improve on my writing skills and just try to learn as much as I can. And I agree with you on that, Griffin. And one thing too, everyone's like, "Oh, you're 49, 50 years old," but you know what? Everybody in your profession that's been in their 20s or 30s, they've been great with me, and it just shows you it doesn't matter what age you are. People really want to help each other in this industry.
Yeah, and I've ran across very few people that are in very prominent positions and did not want to help me or did not want to give me the light of day to talk to me. Someone you'll probably know, Sam Constantino with Sportsnet, talking to him in 30 minutes. Great guy that I got to know throughout the NHL draft combine. Like people want to help others. Like that's really what it boils down to. And if you're going to be rude, snobby, or think that you're the greatest, chances are they're probably not going to want to talk to you. But if you're nice, genuine, and just want to learn and that you're a fan of them and you want to talk highly about them, chances are that they'll want to help you.
Yeah. I was gonna say the Buffalo guys have been really great too. John
Yeah.
Murphy, John from the Bandits,
Hmm.
and the guys from WGR 550. And like I said, I tell people when I come to the States, the Buffalo area is like my second home because
Yeah.
I know a lot of people there and a lot of connections, and I've made a lot of friendships there, and it's just been great. It's like I said, I'm not doing this for the money or the fame part of it. This is something I have a passion for, and this is something I really enjoy.
Yeah. Me too. It boils down to that as well. If you're happy every single day, you go into work, like There was one of my coworkers, he told me at the end of the Sabres season, we had the end of the season press conferences, and he looked at me and he's like, man, like, you really love this. I was like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, I do, but I want to know, like, how you know that. He's like, I've never seen someone so happy to go listen to a press conference and to go write an article about it. And it's true. Like, I just, every single day, there's not been one day over this past year where I'm like, oh, I got to go into work today. It's,
It's
the
not
worst
work.
thing ever. It's
It's
not
not
work.
work.
Yeah,
No, it's not.
not at all.
No. And this one, I think you've already answered. How important has been the internships volunteering to getting into this industry?
It's been everything for me. I don't think that there's a lot of people that wanted to take the route that I did last summer, working for the Muckdogs. I didn't get paid. I was essentially a full-time employee working more than 60 hours a week, I'd say, and I didn't get a penny. So it wasn't just doing the broadcast. And I think a lot of people that are in my position, that's all that they want to do. They don't want to sell tickets. They don't want to clean the stands. They don't want to get the opposing team's locker room ready. Like, they just want to go in at 5 o'clock. Game starts at 7. They do the broadcast and they go home. But you also have the away games. You also have to put in the other hours to scout things out. With my baseball background too, I was helping the team actually in some of their practices and stuff too. So it was a huge experience for me, not just to get my big first break, I want to say, but it was also for me to realize I've always been a hard worker, but if I want to get to the level of success that I want to be, and I know that I can be, that was the first time for me to go out there and be like, okay, like, you talk this talk, now you actually have to go do it. And I think a lot of people recognize that. And I think it was really, really good for me.
Yeah, and a lot of I hear this too with what I'm doing. Everyone's like, "Well, you're not getting paid," but I said, "Listen, I'm getting experience and I'm
Yeah.
getting opportunities, and eventually somebody will notice your work." And it just when you get into a career, even at my age or your age, it takes time. You have to be patient, and you got to pay your dues and get
Hmm.
your experience.
Yeah. 100% agree with that.
Okay. You answered this next question, how you ended up with the internship at the Picula Sports and Entertainment. Overall, how's your experience been, and are you going to try to continue it next season as well with the Sabres and Bandits?
Yeah, so it's an interesting position where I'm at. I'll answer the latter first. How the internships are constructed with Pegula Sports, it's supposed to just be a 1 year thing. And a lot of the times that's because they're either a senior in college or post grad looking for at least something. My case, I was a junior still in school. Like, that really doesn't happen a whole lot. So my plan all along was to do this for a year, and then their other team, the Buffalo Bills, that I could go over there. Unfortunately, I got second place to get a very similar job with the Bills and be their third writer for the team. So I just found that out this week, but still, I mean, there are going to be so many other opportunities for me. So it does definitely suck that I can't be with the Sabres next season or the Bandits next season, but that doesn't mean that down the road I could get something full time with them. So I'm still keeping my options open there. But to just talk about how it's gone this season, I mean, I think it's been huge for me. The first half, the first semester that I could say from about the beginning of September to December was a huge time for me to explore every single department in media and content and, just try to learn, see what I really, really liked. And I think going into it, I was very dead set on just trying to do play by play because I just did that for an entire summer and did that for 50 plus games, which I wasn't going to be able to do. I can't just tell Rick Jenneret, hey, man, like, I want to get a game in. So I had to learn some other things that I wanted to do. And throughout that time, I really discovered my passion for writing again. And there was a need for that on the Sabre side, and there was a drastic need on the Bandit side of things. So that's how I told my higher ups, listen, like, I would love to be the beat writer for this team. I think I could do a really good job with the Bandits. I love the sport. I've been around the team before. And I'm not saying I was a professional in lacrosse and trying to cover lacrosse. I never did before that. but it was more learning on the fly at first. And I think at this point in time, I mean, I think I've done a pretty good job in that. So throughout the season, covering, the Sabres has been really cool, especially on the professional level. Getting your name out there has been monumental for me. And then on the Bandit side of things too, learning an entire sport and how to cover it the proper way was very, very influential for me too.
And I was going to say thanks to my friend Pat Gregor from TSN in Quebec, Canada, and
Yeah.
John, the voice of the Buffalo Bandits. They came on my podcast and they taught me a lot about the game of lacrosse. And then I started watching it, and I went to a rock game in Hamilton. And then obviously I came and saw you guys on April 30th, thanks to John setting that up. And I love the sport, and I'm still learning about it, but now it's like everyone's like, "Oh, you're only into the Big Four," and I'm like, "No, I'm into the Big Five now with the National Lacrosse League." And I had Brian Shanahan, who's a Hall of Fame lacrosse player here in Canada and an NLL analyst, come on my podcast, and this is great because these guys are they're so happy that I'm interested in the sport, and they're willing to share their knowledge with me as well.
Yeah, the interesting thing about the NLL and lacrosse in general is people that don't know about the sport have never really heard much or cared about it. But once they get that one game in, or they go to a game, or they hear more about it, chances are they're really going to like it, because you look at Bandits fans, I mean, they are crazy. Like, it's almost a cult how much they care about this team. And that is because at some point or another, they got introduced to the sport and they haven't turned back from it. I really think it's a great blend of so many sports, because you have a great atmosphere. There's music playing the entire time. It's high intensity, fast paced, a lot of scoring, very shortened in terms of outdoor lacrosse. So I think it makes it more exciting in that way too. But also, these players are so good. Like, they are very, very good at what they do. And for Monday through Friday throughout the week, they're everyday people, because this is not a full-time job for a lot of guys. They have to work at a bank, or they're grinding hours somewhere else, and they're mostly in Canada and the greater GTA area, and they come down for games, and that's that. So it's a very interesting dynamic, and I wish and hope that more people get introduced to the sport and then continue to follow it.
Yeah, I'll definitely be going to more rock games in Hamilton next year, and hopefully again in Buffalo if I get an opportunity to do media work. I would love to do that again. One thing I was going to ask you, I was in Hamilton Sunday. Did you go up that press box in that catwalk? Because that is so. I had to. I'm going to be honest with you. I had one of the guys from the Bulldogs take me the back way. I had to go up a whole bunch of steps, but that catwalk is quite daunting.
Yeah, I'm not a guy that's afraid of heights, but if you are, it's I could see why. It's definitely interesting. I've heard that the Saddle Dome, that's another place that has an old catwalk like that too. So it was a cool experience. I've never been in a catwalk like that before, but it was the first time I went up there. I was like, oh wow, this is kind of crazy.
Yeah, one of the guys was nice enough to take me up to 300 level, and then I went up the steps, didn't look down, and then thank God they have a backup way. But I'll tell you this, the KeyBank Center in Buffalo has an easy way of getting up to the press box.
Yeah, just take the elevator up and you're good to go.
Definitely. Hey, are you still good for time for a few more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. What is a daily day like being the Sabres and Bandits game day writer for their websites? Like, how does the day start for that?
So it really depends. I would say the Sabres is different from the Bandits, because the Sabres, it was more of a constant grind and whatever they needed. For game days for the Sabres, I'll start with them. What I would do would be more of the long piece article. So it wouldn't be your quick right after the horn update about, okay, this team won, so-and-so had 2 goals, the goalie played really well, they scored both goals in the third period. That's that. Very short, quick to the point article. It would be after the press conferences, after you hear the sound, where you try to construct more of, I wouldn't even say a feature piece in a sense, but definitely it's not going to be written right after the horn. Like, it's not going to be on deadline. For the Bandits, it's a little bit different because I was the only person. So I would have to blend both of those articles together. So if you look at how I write those articles, I try to take bits and pieces of a more long form article to start, and then I will get the more journalistic approach of, okay, Dane Smith had 4 points, team high, 2 goals in the third, like just very quick to the point, cutthroat, more towards the middle to the end of the article. So that's something that has been interesting in trying to get different writing styles. But in terms of the day to day, I'll say for Saturday, I'll probably get to the arena around 5:30. Just get there, read the game notes, just get accustomed to everything first. See if there's anything that I can, write down specifically about the matchup, or some weird stats that I could probably include at some point or another. Watch warm-ups, watch them get stretched out, see if there's going to be any lineup changes, probably go down to the field, talk to some people, and then get ready. The Sabres is mostly different because that was still while I was in school. So there would be some days where I would be at our offices at PSC that are right across the street at the Labatt Brew House on the third, fourth, and fifth floor, sorry, and would be up there in the office, and then I just walk over. But then there would be some days where I just drive up hour and a half before the game and do it that way. So it really did depend.
Okay. And obviously after the game you stay and you go down to the press conferences and stuff like that. How is that set? Is it for this series with Colorado? Do they have the Colorado team there too with a player and coach as well?
Yeah, so the NLL takes over for the final series, and they have a roundtable of guys. It's not just one guy going to the podium. They have 3 or 4 mics set up, and they'll bring in first the coach, and then they'll bring in some players, and they'll do that for both teams. So in that area that you've already been in the press conference room, definitely more cameras in there from the local stations. You have some Colorado media in there as well. So even though it's a smaller space, it gets a little bit more crammed in those bigger games.
Yes. I'm going to say I was with the OHL game Sunday in Hamilton, and one of the former NHL players is the head coach of the Spitfires. His name's Mark Savard, and he's quite intimidating. Have you had anybody so far in one of your press conferences that was kind of a little intimidating, especially when you're still new to the industry and learning?
Yeah, I would say at first I didn't know how to act around John Tavares, just because he is indoor lacrosse. Like, he is by far the greatest of all time.
Wayne Gretzky of lacrosse, yes.
Yeah, literally. And, he is, like, when you look at him, an intimidating guy, kind of puts on a front. But once you get to know him, he is a great guy. He's very, very funny. And we've built a pretty good relationship over this past year. So he was a guy at first I didn't really know how to act around him. But other than that, I just try to go into press conferences or asking questions. If you're confident, chances are they're going to give you that, same energy back. So I've never really tried to be looked down upon, or just because I was an intern with the Sabres and I'm around everybody else that's a full-time position, regardless if they're with the team or another entity. So I'd say that he's really been the only guy where at first I was like, okay, like, he's a little intimidating.
Yeah, and like I said, I agree with you. I just need to get more experience with that. And the more you get into these conferences, the more your confidence builds up, and then you just relax. So that's all it is for me and anybody is more experience doing it. Okay. Just got a few more questions I want to ask you. I wanted to ask you this anyway, since I got you on. Thoughts on the 21-22 Sabres and the direction of the franchise? Do you see it heading in the right direction now after this year?
Oh, 100%. I think going into this year, there were some people that were still on the fence about the personnel that got brought in. They weren't sure. Donnie had a great end of last season when he was the interim. Let's see what he can do full time. And I wasn't around previously when Kruger was there, or when Jack was around, or when Donnie was around too. But I knew from day one that atmosphere, being an athlete, being around teams, was what it should have been. And anytime I talked to Kevin Adams, when he would address PSC as a whole, we had a few different meetings where, we got to ask him questions about the state of the franchise and why he made this move and how they have the right people in the building. And I'm a firm believer in that. I think They have not just the right personnel in the front office, but also the players too. Every single person is bought in. They're there for the right reasons, and they want to win in Buffalo. And I think, no offense to Jack Eichel or Sam Reinhart or Rasmus Ristolainen, but those attitudes kind of melted into everybody else. And there was a lot of uneasiness, and there was not a good culture there. So I think that this season was the foundation. They built those building blocks for years to come. They have a lot of young players with a lot of great potential. And I think that this offseason will be the most crucial when we look back in 5 to 6 years and see what this team can do if they're going to keep it as how it is. Because having 3 first-round picks, having the cap room that they do, they have a lot of flexibility if they want to go out and get a big-name guy or trade for a guy like Alex DeBrincat. He's had a lot of different talks right now. Matt Dumba with the Wild. We need some more right D. So there is a lot of interesting moves that can be made, but I would say 100% they're in the right direction. And it's a stretch to say that they'll be ready for the playoffs next year, but in 23-24, that is the end all be all. Like, that team will expect to be in the playoffs or it's a failure. Like, that's just going to be how it is. There's a lot of talk with the playoff drought that they've had. And, that team that they currently have now can't control the past. They can only control for what's going to be the future in years to come. So I definitely think that they are on the right track.
Okay. Quick thoughts on Rick Jeanneret, and obviously Dan Dunleavy's going to be his following in his footsteps. Are the Sabres still going to do simulcasts on MSG and WGR? Or are they going to actually have a TV guy and a radio guy like a lot of teams do?
So I think the plan is to continue with the simulcast from what I
Okay.
know, getting to know both RJ and Dunleavy over the past year. It's been great to get to know Dan and to kind of know what the last 9 years has been like for him, because he got brought in 9 years ago with the thought that RJ was going to be done in 2 to 3 years. So he's been, that guy waiting to get called up, waiting to get his chance for such a long time. And, he's turned down a lot of other opportunities to be another franchise's top guy because he wanted to be here in Buffalo and he knew what it would mean to be the head play-by-play guy for the Sabres. So I'm really excited for him to be around a legend like RJ was something that I'll personally never forget. He was my everything growing up, listening to Sabres games, trying to, pretend to be him on the mic and try to resemble his voice. Like, it was a dream come true. And I'd say throughout this year, I've gotten to do some really cool things, but to be with him on his final call and to, escort him down to the ice after, he said his final words and his final goodbyes, that's something I'm never going to forget.
I was going to say, and Buffalo's been lucky with all these great broadcasters: Van Miller,
Yeah.
John Murphy, Rick Jeanneret, the late Ted Darling. He was
Yeah.
probably
Ted.
before your time, but
Mhm.
he was just as important to the Sabres as Rick Jeanneret. And it's just Ted Darling's life, unfortunately, was cut too short. And you
Yeah.
know what? Even John, when he did the Sabres games, he did a
Mhm.
great job. And to me, you know what? He should have. To me, I think John should have had a longer career with the Sabres. But you know what? Now look at him. He's a legendary broadcaster for the Buffalo Bandits and
Yeah.
one of the biggest supporters of the National Lacrosse League. So things happen for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, with John, I think he just found another avenue of what he loved. He had some adversity, things didn't really work out on the Sabres side, but he's meant a lot to the Bandits over the years, and you're starting to see that now. But yeah, we've been extremely fortunate over the years to have so many great broadcasters.
Definitely. Just two more things to ask you, and I'll let you go. Thoughts on quickly Ryan Miller's number 30 being retired next year? I had to ask you.
Yeah, man, I'm so excited about that. He truly deserves it. And growing up, that's another guy. Like, he was the Buffalo Sabres for all young fans. And he did so much in our community with Roswell Park, the Cancer Institute in Buffalo, and childhood cancer. And, he was, I mean, astronomical in our community and was the face of this city. And I think he really deserves it, not just for the on the ice product and winning a Vezina and being the all-time wins leader as an American-born goalie, but also for what he did in this community. And I think that that's why they made that decision so early, because you mostly don't see guys that were retired less than 2 years ago to get their number retired and to have their name in the rafters. So I think it was just meant to be. You know, I personally don't think it was going to happen as soon as it was, but when I heard the news, you know, a few weeks back that it was going to happen, I mean, it makes complete sense.
Definitely. And he probably is, I don't know if he is, but a lot of these guys that retire seem to like living in Buffalo and the surrounding areas.
Yeah. Yeah, so he ended his career in Anaheim. His wife actually is from California, so they're still living there right now. They actually have a 2-month old baby girl, so they're gonna stay out there. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in time they come back. You never know, but he's definitely said in some interviews, and you know, after the interviews have been done, from you know what I've heard in conversations with him, he is gonna make it a really big emphasis on coming back to Buffalo more, because during his playing career, I mean, he got traded. He went away to St. Louis and then went to Vancouver and then went to Anaheim. So he's kind of been all over the place and far away from Buffalo, but he's trying to make that really end and make an attempt to come back more often.
Yes or no? Does he get into the Hockey Hall of Fame at some point?
I would hope so. I think he has a pretty good shot, I would say personally.
Okay. And I had to ask you this too before we wrap things up. What are 3 keys to a Buffalo win on Saturday night and 3 keys for a Colorado win? Obviously, you want Buffalo to win, but just for both teams, 3 keys.
3 keys. So I'll start with Buffalo. I think you're going to need a number one, much better defensive performance. So that is regardless if they're going to be keying on Zed Williams and Connor Robinson, or maybe some more emphasis to shut down their secondary scoring. That's number one. Number two, I need to see a big game from a Chris Cloutier, a Connor Fields, Kyle Buchanan, maybe one of those other guys to really step up. We saw Tehoka Nanako in game one really take over. He had 5 goals and 2 assists in that game, which kind of came out of nowhere because he really hasn't done a whole lot in the playoffs, but he willed that team to the game one victory. So I need to see somebody else step up. And then for the veterans, I mean, they've been in 2 different finals back in 2016 and 2019. They lost both of those. The entire season has been dedicated to winning their first title. They have to play their best lacrosse in the biggest game of their career. So that goes for Dane Smith. That goes for Matt Vince. That goes for Steve Priolo. Guys that have been here, they need to do everything they can to win. So that's on the Buffalo side. On the Colorado side, I'll say Dylan Ward has to continue to do great things in net. He's really done a great job in limiting their offense as a whole. So he's number one. I would say number two, if they can have guys step up again in the fourth quarter late in the game that they're really not going to rely upon for most of the game. If Tyson Gibson can have a great game, he was the rookie of the year back in 2019. If he can have a great game again, I think that could put them over the edge. And then lastly, I mean, Connor Robinson and Zed Williams, man, if they just have to do everything they can, because without Eli McLaughlin, it's tough sledding for them, but they're right in the thick of things. And after winning at home, I mean, there's no better spot for them to be in.
Okay. I'm going to put you on the spot with this prediction. Who wins? What's the score? And who's the MVP?
I think Buffalo's going to win strictly because they're at home. I think if it was in Colorado, maybe a different story. I'm going to say Buffalo wins 13-10. Dane Smith is the MVP.
I have a 12-11 Buffalo, and Dane Smith is MVP. I agree with you there as well. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I'm going to wrap this up. Griffin, I kept you more than 40 minutes, but I want to say thank you so much for coming on live with CDP podcast this morning. And this last question I wanted to ask you, any advice out there for those, not just myself, looking to pursue a career in broadcasting, TV, or radio journalism? And where can my audience find you on social media if they wish to follow you?
I would say any advice. I think what you're doing is really amazing. I think you're trying to do everything you can. The podcast is a great format for anybody that wants to try to get into the industry, and you said specifically radio. So I think that's perfect. You're doing everything that on the back end of things. You talked about booking potential guests. You talked about cutting and editing your videos and trying to stay on a format so your listeners can have good content throughout the week and gain a following that way. But other than that, I think it's just being persistent. If you really want to do this, it's not going to be 75%. You have to give it your all. And then the audience on social media. So my Instagram is just Griffin Della Penna, as you see on the screen. And then my Twitter is GriffinDP_.
Okay. That's great. I was gonna say, Griffin, I'd like to have you again in the future again
Yeah.
as a guest as well. And I just want to say thank you so much for giving me some time to come on today. And hopefully, maybe next weekend we'll run into you at a Bison's game, and I'll bring you a coffee crisp chocolate bar from Canada.
It sounds like a plan, Chris. Thanks again, as always. Great seeing you.
You too. Thanks, Griffin. And let's go Bandits. And looking forward to a great game tomorrow night, 8 o'clock on ESPN Plus and TSN and WGR 550. Thanks again, Griffin, for coming on. Have a great day. And we'll look forward to speaking to you on social media again soon.
Awesome. Take care, Chris.
You
See ya.
too.
Go Bandits.
Thanks. Go Bandits. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed my podcast today with Griffin Della Penna. He's a content writer and an intern for Pegula Sports and Entertainment. He writes articles for the Sabres and Bandits websites and also helps out with the Buffalo Bandits as well. By the way, guys, just wanted to let you know, next live with CDP podcast, Monday, June 20th at 4 p.m. Eastern. My guest is going to be second-time appearance Rick Zamperin. He's a morning host on CHML 900 in Hamilton, Ontario, and he's also the host of the fifth quarter after each Hamilton Tiger Cats CFL game on the Tiger Cats audio network. He'll be doing that Saturday night, the Tiger Cats home opener against the Calgary Stampeders at 7 o'clock on TSN and on the Tiger Cats audio network. And also after the game, you can listen to Rick Zamperin on the fifth quarter as well. Rick is a huge Leaf fan. And Rick's going to talk to us about the Maple Leafs, Stanley Cup playoffs, obviously the Hamilton Bulldogs. Congratulations to them being the OHL champions. And they're going to be in the Memorial Cup starting Monday, June 20th against the St. John's Sea Dogs, the first game at 7 o'clock. I had the pleasure of interviewing Jay McKee and Mark Savard from Game 5 Sunday in Hamilton. And again, I want to say thank you to Josh Sweetland, the Director of Media Communications for the OHL, for setting me up with a media pass for Game 5 of that series. Hats off to Hamilton for winning their second title in 4 years. And the Windsor Spitfires, tremendous year, exciting year, the Western Conference champions, and they were one game short of the Memorial Cup. They gave Hamilton a harder time than anyone else this year, taking them to 7 games. And I want to say a shout out to Steve Bell, the longtime play-by-play announcer for the Spitfires, and Manny Pava, the color analyst. They both did a great job on CKLW 800 in Windsor, and both great guys. And the Spitfires have a good organization, and they should be a good team next year as well. Speaking of that, the Gulf Storm open up their season next year, the 2022-2023 season, against those OHL and possibly Memorial Cup champion Hamilton Bulldogs on Friday, September 30th at the Sleeman Center. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Guys, just to let you know, since we're talking lacrosse, 2022 NL Finals, Game 3, the deciding game, Colorado Buffalo, this Saturday night, June 18th, 7:30, TSN, ESPN Plus, and you can listen to the Bandits broadcast with John Gurkler, on WGR 550 at 8 o'clock. I guess they'll be on the air at 7:30. But you guys, it's going to be a great game between Buffalo, Colorado. I agree with Griffin. I'm picking Buffalo to win 12-11, and Dane Smith is the MVP. So you guys can check it out on TSN, ESPN, or WGR 550 in Buffalo. And it's going to be a great game, and it's sold out. They'll have over 19,000 fans in Bandit Land. So looking forward to that as well. And also, guys, the Golden State Warriors won their 7th ever NBA title last night in Boston and their 4th title in 88 years with a 103-90 final and defeated the Celtics in 6 games. They won the last 3 games of the series, and Steph Curry finally got his first NBA Finals MVP. So 4 titles for Steph Curry, and he finally gets that Finals MVP award. And you know what? Steve Kerr, hell of a coach. When he was a player, he had 5 championship rings as a NBA player, and now as a head coach, he has 4 more rings. So that's 9 in total for Steve Curry. The Golden State Warrior dynasty is back. Toronto Raptor fans in 2019 thought they ended it, but guess what? The Warriors are back on top as champions, and it just shows you how hard it is to win a championship. And Golden State had difficult years in 2020 and 2021, and it was so great to see Klay Thompson, who was out most of 2 years because of an ACL. He tore an ACL against the Raptors in the 19 finals, and then when he came back, he was supposed to come back in 2021. He tore his other ACL, so he had to go through 2 torn ACLs and miss over 2 years of basketball. And now Klay Thompson gets his 4th NBA championship. So happy for Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, and whether you like him or not, Draymond Green, one of the all-time greats as well, and Steve Kerr as well. So congratulations to the Golden State Warriors, and congratulations to the Boston Celtics too. I personally did not pick them to come out of the East. I picked the Milwaukee Bucks because they were the defending champs last year, but great year for the Boston Celtics, and they did get a Eastern Conference championship, and they will be back, but they made too many mistakes in this series and also too many turnovers. You can't turn the ball over 18 to 21 times a game against a team as quality as Golden State as well. And let's see, guys. The 2022 Stanley Cup Finals resume on Saturday night at 8 o'clock on ESPN and TSN. Sorry, not TSN, ESPN, ABC, and Sportsnet. My mistake. Tampa Bay at Colorado, Game 2. Avalanche lead the series 1-0 after their 3-2, or sorry, 4-3 overtime win on Wednesday. 4-3. So me bad on that. So 4-3, Colorado won in overtime. So we'll see if the Tampa Bay can get a split in Colorado before going back home to Tampa for Games 3 and 4. And also, guys, just to let you know, the 2022 Kia Memorial Cup begins this Monday, June 20th, as these 4 teams battle out for the Memorial Cup Championship, which hasn't been played since 2019 because of the pandemic. You got Hamilton, Edmonton, Shawinigan, and St. John's, the host team. The opening game is Hamilton and St. John's, Game 1 on Monday, June 20th at 7 o'clock on TSN. So look forward to that. And also, guys, before I wrap things up on my podcast, just 1 second. Live with CDP Podcast, the audio version is downloaded onto Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, and LinkedIn. And I want to say thank you to everyone watching this live on my YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you already haven't. I'm up to 107 subscribers now. I still got a ways to go. And thank you to everyone watching this on Facebook Live and on my Twitter page at Chris D. Palme. That's at Chris D. Palme if you wish to follow me there as well. I will be downloading this podcast shortly as well. And also, guys, just to let you know, you guys can also follow me on TikTok at Live with CDP. I post a lot of content on TikTok, again, at Live with CDP as well. And I will be getting some new podcast shirts made up this summer, thanks to my friend Laura. The podcast shirts will be around $15, but I've decided to change the look of them. So bear with me in the next couple weeks, and hopefully I'll have some new podcast shirts to sell for 15 plus shipping if you're out of Guelph as well. And again, I want to say thank you so much to today's guest, Griffin Della Penna, digital content writer for the Buffalo Sabres and Buffalo Bandits websites, and an inspiring broadcaster in the Buffalo, New York area, for coming on today and talking about his career, his schooling with Canisius College, his internship with Pegula Sports Entertainment, and his doing writing for the Bandits and the Sabres, and now being involved with the Buffalo Bills as well. So check out his website on these 2 websites right here. I'm going to post nhl.com/Sabres. And also you can check out the Bandits website, sportsbandits.com as well. Griffin does a great job writing for those both of those teams, and I look forward to seeing him in the future as a broadcaster. A really good guy, and I've been lucky to meet a lot of nice people with this podcast. So very appreciative of the Buffalo Bandits and John and Aliyah for setting me up with that media pass on April 30th at the KeyBank Center, and I'm hoping to come back to Buffalo next year to cover more Bandits games as well. Guys, you can also follow the Lacrosse League at www.nl.com, or just basically Google the National Lacrosse League, and that website will keep you up to date on all the action happenings with the National Lacrosse League, and obviously the NL Finals, which is tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, ESPN Plus, TSN, and WGR 550 as well. So, and also, guys, you can check out my wordpress.com/home/live with CDP podcast.wordpress.com. Again, that's wordpress.com/home/live with CDP podcast .wordpress.com. I do all my blogging on that website, and I will be doing another blog hopefully in the next week or so as well. And that's pretty well it, guys. Again, my next live with CDP podcast, season 3, episode 54, Monday, June 20th, 4 o'clock. My guest is going to be Rick Zamperin, the morning host on CHML 900 in Hamilton, Ontario, and the host of the fifth quarter after each Tiger Cats CFL game will be on. And Rick's going to talk to me about the Hamilton Bulldogs, the Memorial Cup, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, the CFL, and where the Toronto Maple Leafs go next year after their first round playoff exit again to Tampa Bay in 7 games. So I hope you guys can tune in this Monday, 4 o'clock with Rick Zamperin, and it should be another good podcast. So again, I want to say thank you to Griffin Della Penna for coming on live with CDP this morning. And again, guys, I hope you have a great night and enjoy the Major League Baseball on tonight. The CFL's on tonight, and also the Stanley Cup playoffs and the NL Finals this weekend. So have a great weekend, guys, and thanks for watching and listening to Live with CDP podcast. We'll see you Monday at 4 o'clock with Rick Zamperin. Have a great day, everybody, and thank you so much.